it resulted in one of our very first disagreements. Abina's work focuses on digging for the stories and perspectives of the enslaved in underutilized source material. And if there was ever an example of underutilized source material, she informed me, it was the WPA narratives. We went back and forth, me citing all the ways the narratives had been misused in the past, and Abina understanding my reservations while pointing out that misuse does not render something inherently useless. We then shelved the conversation for several months, but I kept learning and researching. Abina finished her PhD. I applied for grad school. We both continued writing and researching and talking and growing. And then I came back to her and told her how desperately I wanted to write about enslaved family relationships and that I wished there was a way to find out more about the interior lives of the enslaved. This is where the WPA narratives would prove incredibly useful, she told me. This time, I listened. I found the complete series available on Project Gutenberg, downloaded the ebooks onto my Kindle, and began to read. And it was hard. For one thing, many of the interviewers copied down stories with sloppy attempts at capturing dialect that renders some words and phrases almost completely illegible. And for another, in interviews from certain states, I just kept running into the same "slavery was better than life is now" rhetoric that had turned me off the narratives in the first place. But this time, I kept going and started to think more like a historian and less like a casual reader. I saw the spaces where the enslaved hedged a bit with their answers. My master was kind, but I did hear stories about other masters who weren't. I saw places where interviewers asked leading questions. Slavery wasn't all bad, was it? I saw spots where the desperation of the Great Depression shone through. I missed slavery because I got to eat every day. I also saw that the ethnicity of the interviewer sometimes made all the difference. To a white interviewer in Georgia, an enslaved person might say that slavery hadn't been all that bad. To a black interviewer in Tennessee, they might give a different, less filtered story. A new picture began to develop for me, even with the limitations of the narratives. And I saw why Abina and Wells Ogogome still found them useful, despite how they have been misapplied, especially for a historian who wants to know more about enslaved family life and enslaved womanhood. As Wells Ogogome shares, women authored only 12% of the published narratives produced by formerly enslaved people, yet they constituted an estimated 50% of the WPA interviewees. The WPA narratives remain one of the only primary sources through which to access the voices of formerly enslaved girls and women in the Anglophone Lower South. As such, studying women's interiority requires historians to re-examine Western epistemological concepts of memory, which prioritize written documents over oral sources and individual recollection over communal reinterpretation in claims about facticity and memory. She continues, taking seriously many captive Africans' emergence from oral contexts and the continued importance of orality in African American cultures, I read the WPA sources through West African concepts of memory. Scholars Babacar Fall and Alice Belagamba assert that West Africans' oral histories evince layers of recollection from varied sources and, accordingly, an awareness of the fallibility of individual memory. People collect knowledge and histories over time via experience and comparisons to similar accounts, which offer a basis for the integration or rejection of new threads. The idea of the WPA narratives as threads of memory stuck with me as I began to conceptualize this project. I started taking them not just as individual tales plucked from a memory here or there, but as a beautiful tapestry forming before my eyes. They are different strokes in a larger painting that begins to stand out in starker relief the more the artist works. I became obsessed.